This is my Earthshatter Gemling setup. Super fast, clearing out the whole screen in 200% building. No bosses. And it easily clears for the juiced expeditions. The build is of course a Gemling like most builds out there. The basic interactions of the build is that we're using advanced thaumaturgy for gem quality stacking. The main skill we have Earthshatter, as it has some real nice extra quality, granting us more damage. And for speed we're using Burning Slash. We then have Burglass and Lorway for Helm Chaining, and for running grand expeditions we use some Undertake to use max life stacking to deal extra damage. I also want to shout out Ulf and Fularis as their Earthshatter versions inspired me to make this particular version. So first I have two versions. The main difference between different versions of my setup is that when I'm running grand expeditions I use a Warrior Invictus for added defenses and spirit. Whereas when mapping I run Lorway for the gem quality along with the enemy's shield barrier hits can be shattered, because then I can run Herald Ice with Herald Chaining. But in grand expeditions this skill doesn't deal enough damage to actually kill stuff. So instead I use Detonate Dead in my custom crit because it scales off enemy max life. And when enemies have millions of max life, this actually deals millions of damage as well, which when paired with Harbinger of Madness that also deals damage depending on enemy max life, makes grand expeditions super easy. I also run Headhunter when running grand expeditions because we can stack up the buffs to like 50 sometimes, whereas when mapping I run a Mageblood. And the only modifier that is important when mapping is the Jade one for evasion rating, so we can regen our energy shield via Ghost Dance. But when running grand expeditions I just rely on stacking some evasion on my gloves along with my body armor instead. Okay, so on to the support gems. Firstly, you want to have the same number of at least strength and int gems, because we're running the gem studded, and if you're running thaumaturgical infusion then you also want to socket as many support gems as possible for added max defense. But if you're mapping and running Lorway then you can use the resistance modifier here. And for the supports, in my Harbinger of Madness that we gain from Sadist's Mercy, I'm using Armor Break for endurance charges along with some added damage. Also a Blind, along with this combination of gems, Culmination, Living Lightning and Aelif's Chimes, as this can generate power charges for us. I then have Discipline, which we gain from our Scepter. I just grab the Scepter with as much spirit as possible, so we can use as many support persistent buffs as possible. We also gain the Asmerian Wolf for some added defense. We then have Eternal Rage, which I gain from my amulet. That's not really needed because we can generate rage via our Whirling Slash, but it just makes it a bit more smooth. For Earthshatter, all we are looking for is damage. From gem quality we gain additional damage from extra spikes along with some added aftershock chance. For supports we use Chaos Menace and Varana's Siege for some AoE and additional fissures. We have Burglass, which grants us damage the more crystal life. And we spawn the ice crystals via our custom crit. This also means that I can use as a regular scepter instead of Sacred Flame, for example, that grants us extra elemental damage because we gain so much extra elemental damage via our Burglass. If you use this, then you go for 50% crit chance when you have power chargers up. And lastly, I have Rakiata's Flow. And of course, if you don't have this, then you can go for elemental armament, for example, or extra crit chance. I'll have some options in the planner in the description. For our Whirling Slash we use this as our movement skill. We want to ensure that it's in weapon set 1 only. And of course Earthshatter in set 2 because we want to use wriggles if we can afford it for added attack speed. I then have rapid attacks free, Medved's Felling. This spends your maximum life to grant you attack speed, but as we use Chaos Inoculation we only have 1 life. And if we have 1 life and 1 life regen roll on our gear, then we regen like 16 times our health every second. So we don't take any damage from Medveds and we don't kill ourselves. Then I have knockback and Morgan's Insight, which is just to make traversing a bit easier. Ghost Dance to regenerate our energy shield. For this to be worth it, you need to have some evasion. Charge regulation. We aim to have all of the different charges up at the same time, granting us crit chance, armor, evasion, energy shield and some skill speed. We use Euphrates to boost its levels. If you don't have it, that's fine. Same with our Berserk, where I also have Diala's Desire for added gem quality, because we get extra max rage from this one. And of course a lot of increased rage effect. This boosts our attack damage multiplicatively, but we also use Mystical Rage here. Grants us damage the more rage we have, and then we transform that into attack damage via Crown of Ice. And then have Infernal Cry, which grants us even more extra elemental damage, and it also blows up the spikes from our Earthshatter, and it can also blow off the spikes from our Frostwall. For this to work, we need to use this Sport Gem. And then just slot in cooldown recovery, Rage and Cry, so we can generate rage if you don't have Eternal Rage on your amulet. Enraged Warcry, so we can keep using it just by spending some rage instead. And Tireless. I then have Blasphemy, where I use Temporal Chains for added defense. I only use this when running Grand Expeditions, because I replace it with Herald of Ice otherwise. And for this to be useful, I use Hex Bloom, ensuring that everything is cursed as enemies die, and then just a magnified area for some added AoE. We then have Wind Dancer for evasion, but the added quality also gives it a lot of extra damage. I use Blind and Bitter, so it freezes. Armor Break to gain some endurance charges. Magnified area and elemental armament. We then have Trinity. You want to have this on level 20 because you then get 6% more elemental damage. We're only really using the cold and the fire, but it's still around 30% extra damage. You can also replace this with elemental conflux if you don't have enough spirit, or you can just slot in Herald of Ice and use Blasphemy combined with Herald of Ice instead. We then have Mana Remnants, and this is important because we are going to use Mind Over Matter to boost our health pool. And we need Mana Remnants to generate mana, but it also overflows our mana, granting us more defense. And we get a lot of extra mana regen from the added quality, which offsets less mana recovery rate from Mind Over Matter. I just boost it, and then we have Cosmic Crit. Here we use our Frost Wall, where we want to boost its life. We can get it to around 200,000 life, so we get 100% gain as gold. And then use Efficiency to reduce the cost along with Fluke, and then detonated when running Grand Expeditions. And if you only run maps, then use Herald of Ice with Armor Explosion instead. This will work if you have Spirit of the Wolf, because then your Herald of Ice can break armor. You don't need armor break from physical damage. Instead you can break armor from all damage. And then I just use elemental armament, cold attunement. Because if you have cold attunement, then you can grant the cold damage to armor explosion. So it chills, and then it triggers Herald of Ice again, so you get a chain. And then magnify there. Okay, next let's check out the gear. You say this to Mercy because it has a lot of dead crit chance. It also has a lot of DPS, and the Grueling Madness and the extra skill. That works great in the Grand Expeditions. We then use Cramped Dice because we want to use Mystical Rage for a lot of extra damage. Warrior Invictus, where you're looking for attributes, spirit and resistances. So you can use an extra skill and use all attributes without having to use adaptive capability. So for the other version where I'm running maps, I run adaptive capability instead of this one. And instead of this one you can also use integrated efficiency if you want more damage, of course. For runes, the important one is the Fox Idol, because this grants you extra gem quality, 5% extra. This one's also pretty good because we're stacking spirits, so you get a lot of added armor from this one. The final ones are not that important. You can also use the reduced curse effect duration here if you want. For rings, you're looking for flat damage. You need 1 mana leech somewhere. And you also want unset rings, so you get the extra skill slots. Then you can just fill in with item rarity, resistances, etc. And somewhere on your gear you need 1 life regen roll. Just 1 is enough. I'd like to replace this increased cold damage with 1 more roll of damage, rarity, or actually mana, because as mentioned we get a lot of defense from mana. We then have the amulet. This one is pretty perfect. You can get 4 melee skill ranks, gem quality, defense and spirit, along with eternal rage for trinity. I'll have a crafting guide in this description for this one. And I also use this passive, generating charges automatically. And I also have Sarok's gift on the helmet, although this is not really necessary if you don't have the currency. For Grand Expeditions we have Headhunter, otherwise I use Mageplan. And as mentioned I have Lorway when mapping. For the class, just look for a lot of evasion if you run the Grand Expedition version, because it's needed to benefit from Ghost Dance. And then just fill out with damage, added defense or attack speed, melee ranks, anything useful. And also use the Cadigan's Epiphany. And here I also have the most important jewel. You need 1 recover max mana on kill. It's very important, otherwise we'll just keep running out of mana. For the boots, nothing special, just look for a lot of energy shield. We don't need the movement speed as we're just moving around with Whirling Stash. And then you can fill out with resistances and rarity. I also have the Wanderlust one here because it makes you immune to temporal chains and the shield effect. And lastly, the weapon set 1. You're just looking for a spear with as high attack speed per second as possible. The rest of the stats doesn't matter. For the scepter, I'm looking for just as much spirit as possible. So as mentioned, we get a lot of added elemental damage via Frostwall and our Whirlglass. We also gain fire damage, 64% extra fire damage from our Infernal Cry. So having a Sacred Flame doesn't benefit us all that much, but if you have a real nice one with a lot of extra spirit, then you can use that one as well. Okay. For the charms, I'm using Breath of the Mountains, which generates power charges. The Wolf, so we can break armor. And Priest Immunity. The Life Flask doesn't matter, but the Mana Flask, we can use this one, which recovers a lot of mana. And we can also pair this with Lorway, As mentioned, the most important one is this modifier, along with max resistances. But we can also gain this modifier fairly cheap. So we gain guard every time we use mana flask. So we can just keep spamming our mana flask and we'll gain 1000 guard every time. For a lot of added defense. Onto the passive tree. We have Earthshatter's Barrier, where the important one is the increased energy shield. The mana regen is also nice. And since we're using a lot of skills, we're gaining a lot of energy shield and vision stacked up the longer we are in a map. But the most important one is, of course, this one, so we gain the added gem quality. This one is also important, it makes us crit immune. Let's make sure that you have the same number of strength support gems as intelligence. And for grand expeditions, I use this one for extra max resistances, but when mapping I have the Lorry as mentioned, so I don't need it, and instead we need this one, because we're not getting the extra attributes from our Grand Regalia Warrior Invictus. So we need this one to be able to use all of the different gems. For passive, I'm using Split Personality Ruby with Shadow. This allows me to ignore all of these nodes and instead go directly to the strong monk tree nodes. To be able to do this, you need to make a path down from the Merc tree all the way over here and up to the monk tree. Then you can socket in the Split Personality Ruby and remove all of these nodes. And then you have this one stuck here. And you can just keep these nodes instead. So for the nodes, downwards, grab some evasion and energy shield. As much crit as possible. If you're using garukhans, then you're looking for the crit chance nodes to 50%. For our jewels, you're looking for crit chance, crit damage. And if you use sapphires, then you can also grab energy shield. If you use emeralds, then you can have attack speed here instead, and the damage up here. But I prefer the defenses, even though I have one brick stat. Here we have a crit cluster, which we only need in weapon set 2, because that's our damage set. We have some AoE before going up here, where we find chaos manipulation, making us chaos immune, along with being able to use medveds. And berserk also, of course. Here we have our main bulk of ailment and stun threshold. Without this, you're gonna get stunned and frozen all the time. For Split Personality, where you want the shadow, some extra energy shield, and here we have Heroic Tragedy Timeless Jewel. The only important thing here is that it's a Varana jewel, because then you can transform a nearby keystone to this one, so you gain energy shield the more strength you have. So here I have 240 strength, which is 120 energy shield from just one jewel, which is pretty nice. Also, here is my Megalomaniac. Insanely important that you grab Mystical Rage, because that's basically, I think it's about half of my damage. Yeah, it's about half. So it's important that you grab Mystical Rage. You can also have it on your amulet or on your helmet, but I think it's cheapest to just get the Megalomaniac. For the second stats, just grab anything useful. And then we have Mind Over Matter here for added defense. Okay, then we go back. For the first weapon set, I'm only looking for some defense and attack speed, because that's where we have our Rolling Slash. Here we have some added defense along with the Hollow Keeper. So if you have this reduced effect of curses paired with this rune, then you're basically curse immune. But you can also use a Wanderlust. It's a bit more expensive, but it makes you immune to at least temporal chains. Here we have a Timeless Diamond. If you run the diamond, then you can get extra max rage. on getting crit chance and attack speed. You can also get more crit damage if you want. I also have a crafting guide for this one. The only difference is that you use a timeless diamond instead of an emerald. Or you can just use any time lost if you're broke. Some extra crit chance, deflection, crit damage up here, an Earthshatter, it's free. These are actually really cheap right now. Can recommend, otherwise just use another crit jewel. Catalysis allows us to take elemental damage instead of physical damage every now and then, which triggers Breath of the Mountains. I may swap out this one for the Frenzy Charge one instead, because I have permanent uptime on power charges anyways. I think I'll add that to the planner. We have some skill speed, some deflection for set 1, that's with def for extra attack speed for our spear, which is why your offhand is empty. Lastly, an extra jewel. So for the gameplay, it's really simple actually. You're just using your Earthshatter 2 or 3 times, then you use Inferno Cry, blow it up. You have Whirling Slash for movement. Use your Earthshatter, move around, spam your Mana Flask. You'll also spawn some Mana Remnants that you want to pick up, but you do that automatically as you're moving with your Whirling Slash. You can also, if you're taking a lot of damage, then you can use Earthshatter at range, as it's a bit of a range skill if you just hold your cursor far away. If you're playing on a console, then I'm not sure that works, but it works on PC.